If you're looking for highly customizable Warrior WeakAuras for Wrath of the Lich King Classic, well, you're watching the right video. I'll be showing you how to install and properly customize them to your liking. We have a lot to cover, so let's get right into it. Alright, so let's begin with the installation. Before we do anything, I recommend that you delete the previous version of the WeakAuras that you were using. This will ensure that we get a clean new install, which will limit the risk of possible issues. You'll only have to do this process once, since in the future, you'll simply have to update them as needed. Let's head over to Luxthos.com in order to copy the import code. The link is provided in the description down below. Simply scroll down on the page, click the button to copy the code, and head back to World of Warcraft. Once you're in-game, make sure to open up the WeakAuras panel by typing /WA in the chat window. Click Import, paste the code, and you're done. One thing to keep in mind is that the name of the actual groups are very important. You need to make sure you do not rename any of them. Also, make sure you do not have any duplicates. If you have multiple copies of the same WeakAuras, the added number to the group name will cause you some issues. The last thing on our list before we move on to the customization is to make sure we activate the action bar cooldown number in the interface options. Without this, if you're using the default UI, you simply won't see any number on your auras. If you want to change the look and behavior of those numbers, you can use an add-on like OmniCC or something more complex like ElvUI. It is important to notice that both these add-ons will replace the default number. So make sure you don't have both options active at the same time, or you'll be seeing some overlaps. Alright, so we're going to be moving on to the customization of the WeakAuras, and we're going to start with placement and sizing. Because I'm using a specific resolution of 1440p and a UI render scale of 100%, you might be seeing something different on your end. The WeakAuras might be bigger or smaller depending on your UI. And you might want to change that or the positioning. So we're going to show you how to do that. Open up WeakAuras/WA, click the Luxthos Warrior group, and go into the group tab. If you want to size the WeakAuras down or up, you're going to use the group scale right here. So you can move it up and down right here, quite simply. If you want to move the WeakAuras left or right, you're going to be using the X offset. And if you want to move them up or down, you're going to be using the Y offset. So that's going to make it quite easy for you to position the WeakAura and size them to your liking. We're now going to be talking about the utility of every group and how to organize the information within them. So if you open up the Warrior group right here, you're going to see that there's a lot of nested groups. They each have a different name and they each contain a bunch of different icons. So we're going to go over them and how to customize them and all of that good stuff. So things are a little bit different from the previous version of the WeakAuras that you were using. So everything in the past had specific display information as to where each icon was placed, but now everything is a lot more free-flowing. So the main group here that contains most of the rotational ability is going to be called the core group. That is going to be the main group that is going to anchor and position everything around itself right here. And as you can see, something cool is happening here. So you got something called the main bar at the top over here, and something I call the secondary bar right here at the bottom. So all of these ability are part of a single group. What is going on though is that after a number of icon, everything that goes after 8 is being pushed down at the bottom here into the secondary icon. What that means is that the order is actually is being used for the display. So not only are you going to be able to customize how many icons have in this first bar, but you're going to be able to change the order of every single ability here. So let's say right now that I'm on my Fury Warrior and I would like my Slam proc over here to be before Bloodthirst. Well, that's quite easy. All I got to do is click and move. And now the Slam icon is before Bloodthirst. So that is quite nice. That gives you the option to be able to modify everything how you like to fit your current action bar. So you got the option here. You can simply drag and drop, reposition everything exactly how you want it. And everything that overflows will be positioned at the bottom. So feel free to play with this. Feel free to modify it. The WeakAuras right now are set up to be optimal with this number of icon and have the proper ability show up at the top and everything overflow at the bottom. So this is going to be the main important group right here that you're going to see. This is going to be your core, and every rotational or every major rotational and cooldown is going to be placed within it. So that's going to be the first one right here. Just over that group, you're going to see the dynamic effect and dynamic spell. So these two group right here are going to sit right on top right here. As you can see, if we click the larger group, you'll be able to see all of the icons. So effect will contain buff and debuff. So these are going to be things that are going to show up for a very little amount of time. Usually they're going to be either debuff that you apply to the target or buff that you apply to yourself, procs, or even tier set bonus. So these are all going to be showing up. Feel free to customize this. I've added pretty much every single one of them. If you think that it's a little bit too crowded, I invite you to go ahead and remove some of them. So for example, Blood Craze might not be as useful for some of you. You simply go into the load tab here, check never, and it's not going to show up. So it's going to clean up things a little bit and it's not going to be as crowded. So again, you're able to modify the order of the icons in here. So if you want to change things, however they show, it's all possible to do that in here. We're going to move on to the dynamic spells. So the dynamic effect is sitting on the left here. Dynamic spells is sitting on the right. So it's sitting on the opposite side over here. Dynamic spell is going to be pretty much what I call the overflow. So it's a bunch of abilities that I'm throwing in this group. These abilities are going to show up only when they're on cooldown. So they're not going to be part of your main rotation. They're usually going to be little side abilities. They're going to be maybe sometimes movement ability, taunt, all of that. They're going to be placed into the dynamic spell right here. And they're only going to show when they're on CD. So for example, if I go ahead and target this dummy right here, and I go into battle stance and I hit charge, it's going to show up charge right here on cooldown. And when it's off cooldown, it's simply going to disappear. And you're going to be able to know that the ability is now available. So obviously, these icon can be moved. So if you want, you could take charge and move it to the core, if that's something that's very important. But there's a little extra step that you have to do in order to do this. So when I look at charge here, if I go into the trigger, I can see that charge uses a trigger here for the cooldown of charge. And on the show segment here, it shows me on cooldown. Well, if I want to move it to the core and have it show all the time, I simply need it to change to always right here. Then I can take the charge ability, move it right here, and boom, it's now showing in the core group at all time. I'm going to reset this back to its original position, but that is something you can do. The reason that they're in here right now is because there's obviously a lot of abilities. Warrior have a lot of abilities, and it's getting a little bit too crowded, especially for some specialization. There's a lot of information going on here. So this is allowing me to clean things up a little bit and move some ability here. But if you want to change some of these and you want to move them over, feel free to do so. We're going to go ahead and move on to the left and right side. As you can see, these two groups are empty at the moment. These two groups are here to allow you to go back to a previous version of design iteration. Right now, these WeakAuras are for Wrath of the Lich King, but they're based on the design of the WeakAuras that I created for Battle for Azeroth and Shadowland. And in those previous version, I would put the cooldown or the offensive cooldown on one of the group on the left side here. And then the interrupt and the stuns would be on the other side of the ores here. This is a design that I've moved away from in order to create a more free-flowing, customizable layout. But if you want to go back to this, if you like having information a little bit separated, well, I created the group so that you're able to do so yourself. So for example, let's say that I would like to grab some of my cooldown here. If I want to grab like Retaliation, Recklessness, and Shield Wall, for example, and I want to move them to the left group, well, I can do that. All I have to do is click and drag, move them to the group, close WeakAura, do a quick /reload, and there we go. Now the abilities are flowing on the side right here, and you can do the same with your interrupt and your stun on the other side. If that helps you read the information a little bit better, then feel free to do that. So that's gonna be one of the options that you can do. We're gonna move them back into their original position right here. There we go. So these groups are gonna remain empty, but they're there if you want to customize them. If you wanna adapt the way that your abilities look, and if you want to separate some of the information. So that's going to be available to you. We're going to go over and talk about the maintenance group. So the maintenance group is going to contain buff maintenance things. So it's usually going to be things that you apply to yourself, or sometimes longer cooldown. So we're going to have Battle Shout, Commanding Shout, and Vigilance for the Warrior. So that's going to show up at the bottom. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this in a later segment on how to customize their visibility and all of that good stuff. Then the last group we're going to go ahead and talk about is going to be the resources. So this is the group that sits in between the primary row of action and the secondary one right here. So it sits in between. So if you look at this here, there's a space, and then you're going to have the resources that are going to sit in there. By default, there is a health bar and the rage bar loaded here for Warrior. Health bar by default is always loaded never. This is something that I've never had in my previous WeakAuras, and it's not going to be here by default. But if you want it, I know this is something that has been very requested. So if you do want it, then all you have to do is click on health bar here in the resources group, go into the load tab, and uncheck never, and do a quick /reload once you close the WeakAura, and you're good to go. So now you have your own health bar, and you can customize it as well. So that's pretty nice. We're gonna go ahead and reload this back to default, and that's gonna be mostly it for the group. So that was a quick overview of all of the information here, how to reorder everything. So you can obviously change the order of everything, customize everything to your liking, and you're gonna be a little bit more aware of what every group does and how to position things relative to their position here on the WeakAuras. All right, so we're gonna move on to the custom options. So this is gonna be a very important segment, pretty big segment, but it's gonna be fun. So if you click on the Warrior group right here, and you go into the custom option, you'll see that you have a bunch of things that you can customize. Just to explain and make things a little bit more clear, there's a bunch of options in different groups. So there's the general option here for the Warrior. This is going to be more of a global style of options. These are things that are applied and similar for every single class. So let's say that you're loading auras on another class and you would like to have this particular style. This is something that you could technically copy the configuration and paste it onto other classes, right? If you want your Hunter WeakAuras to have the same style, well, you could do that. It's very straightforward. These are the very global style, layout. And then you have the class option. These are going to be a little bit more centralized, I guess, to your class. You're going to have the rage bar and the health bar. And then you're going to have also some custom option that we're going to talk about later for the maintenance icon. But the easiest way to go about this is to target the main group. So if I select the main Warrior group and I go in custom option, all of them are going to load at the same time here. So you can even like do this. There you go. Click on it, custom option, and you're good to go. So we can start customizing. We're going to go over every single one of those little categories, and I'm going to explain to you what everything does, and we're going to build a new design because that's what it's used for. So the global style. Global style is going to be kind of cool. So it has the border size option here, which is kind of nice. So if you slide this little slider here, you'll see that it applies a border to every single element. So it's either 0 or 3 right here. We're going to go for 2. As you can see, the border is being applied to every single group, even the resources bar, all of that good stuff. You can even change the color of that border if you want it to be white. Most people are probably going to leave it at black. Gives it a very nice little, like clean look that fits with a lot of UI, including LVUI and all of that stuff. So I think this is a very popular look. So we're going to leave it at that. We're going to leave it at 2. The icon zoom here is to remove the default border of the icon, right? So the default World of Warcraft icon have this kind of 3D shape going on here. If we apply a 30% zoom, it simply removes that. So if you want to play with that, We're going to put back the border. And then we can decide to apply the border to the resources bar if you want to or not. Let's say that you have a design with a smaller resources bar. You might not want to apply it there if it doesn't look good. So you have that option. We're going to now talk about the main icons. So right here, you're going to be able to customize the width and the height of the main row here, the main core row. So you can change the width of the icon right here. As you can see, everything adapts and flows with it. So if you want to have some larger icons, if you want to have them maybe be thinner, if you want, you could have that. It could be an interesting design. We're going to leave it by default for now at 48, and we're going to change actually the height. We're going to give it like a more, rectangle squeeze look here. I kind of like this. So we're going to leave it at 34 for now. We're going to change the spacing if we want to, so we can change the spacing. As you can see, it applies the spacing here in the entire core group and the resources. So nothing else is being affected right now, simply the core group in the main icon here. This is the main section here, and everything is gonna flow. So we start at 3. We're going to reduce it to 1, just to give it a more, just a different look, Number of icons here, a very, very interesting setting. So this is going to change, like I talked earlier, the number of icons on the first row right here. So right now we have 8 by default, and keep in mind that they have been designed with 8 icon on that main row. So I've designed these to actually have all of the icons, line up well and have good information for the first row. But if you want to change that, feel free to do so. So you can increase it all the way up to 10. And as you can see, everything else at the bottom is also going to adapt, or you can even have it be 5 if you want. If you would like your WeakAuras to be a little bit smaller, just keep in mind that the second row is going to overflow to the bottom. So you might have this, but it still looks pretty good. So we're already starting to get some nice changes over here. So we're going to keep it at 8 because I kind of like it this way. It looks great. It works with the design that I had in mind. And we're going to move on to secondary icons here. You can change, again, the width of those, but we're simply going to squeeze in a little bit of height right here to keep the same look that we're kind of working towards right now, which I think looks pretty cool. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to reduce the spacing to 1 as well to keep the same kind of idea. So the secondary icon is going to be the second layer here at the bottom below the resources bar. Then we have the dynamic group, which are going to be the 2 groups at the top here. We're going to go ahead and not touch the width, but we're going to, reduce the height. Again, all I'm doing right now is showing you a possible design idea. You can feel free to play around and modify these as much as you want. I'm just showing you the option, showing you like a possible different design that you could achieve. We're going to reduce the height, reduce the spacing. The bottom margin is simply going to be if you want them to touch the main bar or if you want a little bit of breathing room between. So we're going to leave it at 10. I think a little bit of breathing room is kind of nice. And the 2 other options here are quite interesting. So the dynamic effects, if you remember, sits on the left side of the WeakAuras at the top here. And then the spell effect sits on the right side. Well, you can swap these. So if you want to have the buff and debuff on this side, but you prefer watching your abilities, your cooldown abilities on this side, well, simply check this box, right? So that's pretty simple. If you want them to show from the middle, so instead of starting from the, the opposite side from left and right and growing inward towards the middle, you can actually reverse that so that they will both start from the middle and grow outward. So not only can you do that, but you can also swap them at the same time. So you have complete control over how this looks. Feel free to test and play with these. The side icons, we're not going to need to touch those because we haven't put any icons in here. But like I explained a little bit earlier, this is going to style. If I had any on the left and right side, this is going to be the same kind of settings. So the width, the height, the spacing, and the margin for the side. We're going to go ahead and move over to the maintenance icon. So this is a little bit more complex categories. It still has the width, the height, which we're going to lower down a little bit right here. And it still has some spacing, so we're going to lower that down. And we got some top margin. So it's the opposite of the dynamic group. So this one is top margin instead of bottom. We're going to leave it at 10. But the options here are quite interesting. So this category has Vigilance, Commanding Shout, and Battle Shout. You're going to be able here to change the behavior of those spells. So if you want right now, so all 3 are shown if applied. So that means that they're never going to bother you if they're not applied. But when they are applied, you'll get a quick little reminder that they are. If you want to change this behavior, simply click on the drop down and you can change it. You can do show if missing, so it's simply going to alert you when it's missing, and then when you apply it, it's going to go away. And always is simply going to give you both state, and it's going to change the opacity. So if it's missing, it's going to be, a little bit desaturated, and when applied, it's going to be shown full opacity. So that's what always show will do. We're going to leave it at show if applied. And all of these are going to be set like this. You can customize all of these. And while in a rested area, the behavior changes a little bit. So let's say that if you do battle shout, for example, show if missing, but I'm in a rested area, it's not going to bug me too much, right? But as soon as I go outside in PvP, like pretty much anywhere beside a resting area, or if I enter combat, then the weak aura is going to alert me that the battle shout is missing, right? So we're going to go ahead and bring that back to show if applied. And the styling is going to be good here. So we're going to close that out. The resources now. So the first option here is going to be position. So the resources are going to be your health bar and your rage bar. If you want, you can move these to be above the primary group. So right now they're sitting between the primary and the secondary. But if you want, you could have it be the first layer at the top right here. If you want, that is a possibility. There we go. We're going to keep it below, or between, I should say. And then you're going to have the height of the bar. So there's 3 types of bar that I use across multiple classes and design. And the warrior uses primarily the resource one. So the height one is going to be applied to the health and the rage bar. If you want, you're going to be able to choose which height is being used to each of these bar. So if you want, for example, your health bar to be a different size than the rage one, you can simply give it a separate one of these variables, and then you can change it. So if we want, we can have this be larger or smaller. Just for fun, let's have it have like a clean little look like this, like just a tiny little bar for the rage. Let's have fun with that. So next option, the out of combat alpha, is pretty interesting. So if you want, you can go ahead and lower the opacity here. If you want this to be a little bit faded, maybe when you're out of combat right here, and when you go into combat, it should show up again. And then you have the ignore on enemy target and ignore on friendly target. So let's say that we target somebody right here, the weak auras show up again in full opacity. You can bring all the way down if you don't want to see them outside of combat. Then we got the health bar option right here. So you can change the height and the text formatting. So the height is like we explained a little bit earlier. So if you want to have a different height, for example, than the rage bars, you can go ahead and select height 2. And it's going to then pull from this slider over here. So you can have a separate value if you want to do that. Then you're going to be able to customize the text formatting. So you're going to have the full number, formatted, full number plus %, formatted %, and then just percentage if you want to see that. You can change the gradient. So right now it's applying a slight gradient in color. So you have the first one, the second one, and so you can change that right here. You can do whatever you want. And then you can also use a flat color if you would like to use a single color here for your health bar instead of having a cool little gradient. For the rage bar here, it's going to be quite simple. You're going to get only the height as an option here if you want to change to a different one, if you want to customize something different. And again, you're going to get access to the gradient. If you want your rage bar to have a different color, you're going to be able to customize that over here and remove the gradient as well. So this is now the new look that we are left with. We're going to go in combat real quick, show you how it all works. And you're going to be able to see right here, we got our rage bar looking a little bit different, kind of a slim little look. We got the number right here. Everything is quite different than the original design, right? And the really cool thing about this is that you can share this design. So if your friend or maybe someone you know, or you just want to load, maybe somebody shared somewhere online a different look for the weak auras, you can load them quite easily. So I'm going to show you how that works real quick. So if you remember, we had the general option here that is the global style that we applied all of our borders and all of the cool look right here, right? So let's say that we want to share this with our friend. You can simply export the code here. You get access to this, and then you can share it. So somebody else or you could get a code online, import it. Then you're going to have this option over here that's going to show up outside here. So this is going to be the new style. Let's say that we go back to the options here and we reset all of them. So we're going to reset them to default right here, right? they're all going to come back to their default state. But then let's say we want to apply this new design that we just created. We're going to do a quick reload after importing it real quick. There we go. And then all we got to do is right click this group, copy setting, custom configuration right here, go over here and paste the custom configuration. There we go. And then we can just delete this group. We no longer need it. And there we go. We're back to the original design. So that means they can be exported. They can be shared. You can do pretty much whatever you want. So if you have something cool or you want to apply it to different classes as well. So let's say that you would like to go apply that design to your Druid, to your Death Knight, or whatever other class you're playing. You can do that quite easily. So simply by copying the custom configuration, you're going to be good to go. Make sure you don't copy anything else here, just the custom configuration, and then paste it over to the other groups. If after importing this layer, the custom option, custom configuration isn't showing up, make sure you do the reload like shown a little bit earlier. Make sure you do the /reload and it should show up and you'll be able to copy and paste it onto other groups. The class option, you're not going to be able to do this because this is a little bit more, unique to every single class. So these are going to contain information based on the class. For example, Death Knight has runic power and runes. So that's not going to be able to be shared and duplicated across multiple classes, which is why we've actually split it up like this to allow you to share it and customize it a little bit better. One more thing I quickly want to go over is how to change fonts. So I know this is going to be something that a lot of people are going to want to do to adapt the size, color, and the font of the text on the WeakAuras in order to line up better with their design. This is something that's not quite as easy, but it is still achievable. So there's three sources of number that you're going to need to change. There's the major cooldown that is for the cooldown of the abilities and the duration of the buff that is shown in the middle right here. So these are going to be using the default World of Warcraft font. There's an easy way to change this, like I explained in the installation process. If you load something up like OmniCC or LVUI, you're going to be able to customize the default World of Warcraft behavior for the font and the cooldown swipe on these. So this is going to be the quickest way for you to modify the middle of these icons, the number, the text, the font here. And then in order to change the font of the resource bar, you're simply going to open up the WeakAuras panel. You're going to go into the resource bar, click on these, and then in the display tab, you're going to have access to the font right here, and you're going to be able to choose one of these. Obviously, if you're loading external add-on and libraries, you might have access to more of these. You can change the size, the color, and also for the rage bar as well, size and font and color over here. And then the other area where you might need to make some change is going to be in the core group here on the display tab. Some abilities have a little extra number that lies over on top over here. This one is added custom, so that means that it's not going to be changed by OmniCC or LVUI, for example. Like if we take Sweeping Strike, it has a little number here to show the remaining amount of stacks. So the font is going to be right here. You can go ahead and modify that. And you're going to have the same behavior for also Slam and Shield Block, I believe. So there you go. If you simply mouse over, you're going to see which one are going to be affected by this. So Slam, Shield Block, Sweeping Strike. So you can go ahead and modify this for these, change the font, load the add-on for the cooldown, and then manually change the font for the resource bar. And you should be good to go. The font should be changed and updated to fit your desired design. All right, well, that's it for this video. I cannot believe you made it all the way to the end. If you would like to support in any way, shape, or form, make sure to like this video. I know everybody says this, but it's true. Like the video, subscribe to my channel if you want to on YouTube, and come see me on Twitch. I stream every single day on Twitch. I play World of Warcraft, I play variety games, we make WeakAuras, we have a good time. Join us, come throw me a follow, just say hi. I'll be really happy. But in the meantime, I'll see you all in World of Warcraft.